My name is Dr. Kenyon Knapp. I have 2 master's degrees in counseling and a PhD, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've been a counseling professor for about 25 years, but the thoughts I'm sharing today are speaking purely for myself, not any of the institutions that I've worked for. I'd like to speak to you briefly today about transsexualism. I have worked with about 60 clients in my career with that issue. Interestingly enough, almost all of my clients that have issues with transsexualism have a history of sexual abuse. What I'm seeing in America right now is a rush to judgment. That in transsexualism, if you're not familiar with it, means people have a perception that they've been born into the wrong body. So if they're a biological male, they think that they're a female on the inside, or if they're a female, a girl, they think that they're a boy. And the solution that a lot of people in society today allege is just to transition into the opposite sex and to have sexual reassignment surgery, which is basically plastic surgery for the genitalia. Now, I have to pause and say that best practices for any medical field is to rule out other potential causes for some phenomenon. So, for example, recently I had a son who had a swollen ear. And the question we should ask ourselves is his ear swollen because of an infection, because he's having some type of allergic reaction, or because of a bee sting, for example? And that's best practice to try to figure out what it is, because if you're not treating the correct issue, you're not going to solve the problem. With the idea that gender confusion, the only solution to it is transsexual surgery with young children. There's a growing number of states in America, such as California and other states, that are pushing transsexual and transgender curriculums in the schools as early as kindergarten. The problem with that is that gender identity or gender confusion and all of these things are very abstract concepts. I'm going to share a chart here on the screen for a second to show you. The chart I just put up on the screen for you is from Jean Piaget. He was a developmental psychologist, and his theories are well accepted in the mental health fields. And what he talks about is that when children are young, you can see the sensory motor stage, pre-operational stage, concrete operational, and formal operational stage. It's only when children get to be about 12 years old or a little bit older that they start to think abstractly. They start to think about things such as gravity or centrifugal force and other concepts that are very abstract. Well, the problem is gender identity is an abstract concept, and kids are not able to really process that idea cognitively until they get to at least 12, 13 years old. But the problem is the schools are pushing this agenda on kids as young as kindergarten. Now, to me, that's the equivalent of making like a 5-year-old drive a car. And of course, we wouldn't do that because that would be irresponsible, because children are not developed enough in their abilities to drive a vehicle or other things that we limit people in society to certain ages for. But because of the push in society for transsexual ideas, they're pushing this on kids that are not able to process the entire concept. And I believe that that's really irresponsible. The other challenge with this is that once a person does sexual reassignment surgery, that plastic surgery to take off the genitalia and put on other genitalia, or it's not truly, but it's plastic surgery that looks like the genitalia of the opposite sex. It's irreversible, and it also causes sterility. And the problem is gender dysphoria. The confusion about sexuality often resolves, but if the person goes through sexual reassignment surgery, there's no going back. My heart certainly goes out to those in society who struggle with gender dysphoria. As I mentioned, I've had numerous clients over the years that have struggled with this, and a lot of them feel depressed. The people who are pushing these ideas say that they're feeling depressed because they're not accepted by society. I think that may be true in some cases, but not on a large scale as they suggest. What I've observed in my clients is that they are more depressed after they do sexual reassignment surgery than before, because they're promised that this is going to solve their problems. They're going to be themselves, per se. It's going to solve all these things, and it doesn't. And they feel more let down afterwards than before. Interestingly enough, there's been a number of studies done on this about, do people grow out of gender dysphoria? And in a number of studies around the world, they found between 70% to 97.8% of biological males grow out of gender dysphoria, and between 50 to 88% of females grow out of it as well. So the vast majority of people, if they don't do sexual reassignment surgery, they become comfortable with the sex they were born with. In some parts of the world, though, that is not accepted. There's such a rush to judgment to change people's biological sex that they push sexual reassignment surgery. This has happened in Europe, particularly in England. There's a famous clinic over there called the Tavistock Clinic, and it's closing right now, or it's closed recently, and they have a class action lawsuit pending against them. And the allegation is that numerous clients there were rushed through the sex change process because of societal pressure, and they were not fully informed of all the consequences and side effects of doing this. And so my hope is that people in America would learn from the mistakes of those in England and other parts of the world, and that we would not push children into making decisions that they're not cognitively prepared to make, and ones that are irreversible. And I believe the fact that some mental health organizations are promoting this is very irresponsible on their part. And one day people will come back and regret having pushed this, because we have to do what is in the best interest of children. And that's my aspiration. Thank you so much for your time.